To test whether Bien was truly loyal, his girlfriend drugged him with aphrodisiac and then quietly left. After the drug took effect, his face turned flushed, his breathing became heavy, and his frustrated eyes were wet, filled with uncontrollable lust. He said in a hoarse voice, "Jian Rao, help me." His voice trembled slightly, and it strongly tugged at my heartstrings, but I just turned around, closed the door, ran to the bathroom, took out my phone, and called 110. I whispered, "Hello. My friend seems to have been drugged, please come quickly, the address is," outside the door. My childhood friend was still pleading pitifully, "Jian Rao, since we were young, didn't you like me the most? How could you bear to see me suffer?" He didn't know that liking him was something from my previous life. He also didn't know how miserable my end was in the previous life. In this life, how could I possibly repeat the same mistakes? Dong, dong, dong. There was a knock on the door. My body reacted faster than my mind. Before I could even think, I opened the door. Bien was standing outside the door, his face flushed, breathing heavily and roughly. His eyes were blurred, his expression pained and frustrated. His eyes were wet, even though he was trying his best to suppress it. The uncontrollable lust could still be seen. I was stunned. Wasn't this the scene from my previous life? Bien said in a hoarse voice, "Jian Rao, help me." His voice trembled as he spoke, and anyone could tell how hard he was enduring. His appearance of trying to restrain himself yet helplessly begging strongly tugged at my heartstrings. But after I came to my senses, scenes from my previous life flashed through my mind at high speed. It was as if someone was choking my throat, and I couldn't catch my breath for a long time. Bien in front of me spoke again, "Jian Rao, please help me, okay?" His voice, mixed with lust, pulled me back to reality. Before his hand could touch the back of my head, I immediately closed the door and ran into the bathroom. I quickly turned on the faucet, then took out my phone and dialed the police number. The call was quickly connected, and I whispered, "Is this 110? My friend seems to have been drugged. Please come quickly, the address is." When I came out of the bathroom, Bien outside the door was still pleading pitifully. He slapped the door forcefully, his voice irritable and pitiful, "Jian Rao. Since we were young, didn't you like me the most? How could you have the heart to watch me suffer? Jian Rao, help me, I can't hold on any longer." His voice became hoarser and hoarser, his breathing more and more rapid, and the sound of slapping the door became softer and softer. It seemed that he really couldn't take it anymore, but I still sat firmly in the room, not willing to move a single step. Bien didn't know that I had liked him in my previous life. He also didn't know how miserably I died after being forced to be his antidote out of worry in the previous life. Cold sweat oozed from my palms. I reminded myself over and over again, "Jian Rao, you must never repeat the same mistakes." Bien, who had been quiet outside the door for a few minutes, became irritable again. He started ramming the door, trying to break in. I smashed a bottle of beer and tightly held the broken beer bottle, thinking that once he rushed in, I would stab him directly. In short, no matter what method I used, I didn't want to repeat the tragedy of my previous life. "Why haven't the police come yet?" Bang, 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 again and again, one sound after another. Even the wall slightly shook as the door frame was hit. Looking at the door that shook more and more with each impact, my heart was in my throat. Crash, the door was finally knocked open. Broken wood and shattered wood chips, mixed with falling wall plaster, spilled all over the floor. The door hung crookedly on the door frame, swaying creakily. Bien's eyes were blood red as he walked towards me step by step. He mumbled incoherently, "Jian Rao, don't be afraid, help me, it'll be over soon, and you'll feel good too." I was forced back into the corner, and I still couldn't avoid the distance between him and me shortening continuously. Finally, he came in front of me. I held half of the beer bottle in the direction of him, my voice filled with a thick sobbing tone. "Bien, don't come any closer. What do you want to do? I'm scared. If you come any closer, I won't be polite to you. Step back, go back, please." Bien had a strange smile on his face as he muttered to himself, "Jian Rao, didn't you like me the most? How could you bear to hurt me? Right, help me, it'll be over soon." As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed my collar, trying to tear my clothes, and I also seized the opportunity. The sharp glass of the beer bottle was aimed at his lower abdomen. The moment my clothes were roughly torn open, I finally heard the siren at the door. Immediately after, I saw the police running towards me. Bien, however, seemed to hear nothing. His face pressed down towards me, trying to kiss me. At this moment, I unceremoniously grabbed half of the beer bottle and sent the sharp glass into his lower abdomen, and even gave it a hard twist. Blood spurted out, flowing down the bottle onto my hand and dripping onto the floor. I seemed to clearly hear the sound of blood hitting the floor. Ah, ah, ah. When Bian's screams rang out, I quickly let go of my hand, covered my chest, and squatted on the ground, crying loudly. When Bian, what are you trying to do? I didn't mean to. The police quickly stepped forward, after controlling Wen Bian. They quickly grabbed a coat and put it on me. He comforted me softly. It's okay, little girl, it's okay, you're safe now. I leaned on the police officer and cried my eyes out. The tightly wound string in my heart finally relaxed. I thought to myself, Yu Xinshin, let's see how you play this out next. Yu Xinshin was Wen Bian's girlfriend, whom he doted on to the extreme. It was she who drugged Wen Bian, then made an excuse to leave, and specifically left me in the holiday villa, just to test whether Wen Bian could be loyal. 3. I stayed at the police station to make a statement, while Wen Bian was taken to the hospital to bandage his wounds and undergo a physical examination. After his blood test report came out, the police began to investigate the people who were with us. I closed my eyes and rested in the lounge, recalling the events of my previous life. In my previous life, after the noise outside the door stopped, I was extremely worried, afraid that Wen Bian was in danger. I opened the door to check, but this turned out to be Wen Bian's trap. He knew that I had liked him since I was a child and would definitely be worried about his safety and opened the door to check. As soon as I opened the door, Wen Bian suddenly rushed in. His strength was terrifying. He pressed me onto the bed, tore my clothes, and took whatever he wanted from me. It was over an hour before he let out a low growl and stopped his actions. At this time, I was covered in bruises all over my body from his roughness. Just then, Yu Xinshin suddenly rushed in with the few people who had left. Looking at the messy scene in the room, Yu Xinshin broke down and cried, Wen Bian, Jian Rao, you two adulterers, have you no shame? Yu Xinshin turned to run, but Wen Bian took big steps forward, grabbed her arm, pulled her back, and held her tightly in his arms. Wen Bian carefully kissed the tears sliding down Yu Xinshin's cheeks, looking extremely guilty. Xinshin, it's not what you think, really, I can explain. Jian Rao is just a tool for me to relieve my desires. I don't know what happened to me. I must have been possessed by a demon to have such lustful thoughts, or it's Jian Rao, maybe she did something to me, so I lost my mind. Yes, that's it must be like that. 4. I sat on the bed in shock, already ashamed of being caught. I was completely dumbfounded in the face of the sudden accusation. I instinctively defended myself. It's not me, I didn't do it, I don't know. But no one was willing to listen to my defense. They all stared at me with malicious eyes, as if I were some dirty thing. Jian Rao, I really didn't expect you to be so shameless. Knowing that Bian and Xinshin are a couple, you still seduce Bian and take the initiative to climb into his bed. What, are you really that starved for a man? How about I introduce a couple to you so you can have a good time? With her eager look, 2 are definitely not enough, 20 might be more like it. They spoke one after another, and their filthy words almost tore me to pieces. When Bian turned a blind eye to this and focused on coaxing Yu Xinshin, Xinshin, that limited edition bag you like, how about I buy it for you? I'll take you to meet my parents, let's get engaged as soon as possible. Okay, Yu Xinshin proposed one condition after another. Only after getting enough benefits did she stop crying and start smiling. Her anger shifted to me. Jian Rao, she did such a shameless thing, shouldn't she apologize to me? Seeing that Yu Xinshin had let something slip, Wen Bian immediately agreed. He grabbed my arm, dragged me off the bed, and pulled me in front of Yu Xinshin, forcing me to kneel in front of her and apologize. He didn't even care that I hadn't had time to get dressed properly because of everyone's sudden intrusion. The blue-purple marks on my body were exposed in front of everyone, and they sneered, Jian Rao, I didn't know you liked such kinky things. After humiliating me enough, Yu Xinshin and Wen Bian left in an embrace, leaving me alone, at a loss. My heart was like dead ashes, because I was too ashamed to speak up. I didn't even dare to call the police and could only pretend that this incident had never happened. From that day on, I completely distanced myself from Wen Bian and hid alone to heal my wounds, but they wouldn't let me go. One day, Wen Bian sent me a message, asking me to go out. He said, Jian Rao, I want to apologize to you. To give myself an explanation, I chose to go to the appointment. But what I didn't expect was that this was simply a well-planned trap by him. 5. In order to show that he had no feelings for me, when Bien asked me out in the name of apologizing, tricked me into drinking a drugged drink, and threw me into a wild orgy party, he also bribed reporters to report on this matter extensively, taking a lot of photos and even videos. Everyone's faces were blurred except mine. I was insulted one after another but knew nothing about it. When I woke up, the news was already all over the place. In the news photos, my face was clearly visible. Overnight, I became infamous. I went crazy looking for Wen Bien and questioned him why he treated me like this. Wen Bien, what exactly did I do to you that I'm sorry for? Why are you trying to harm me like this? Is it only when I'm dead that you'll let me go? Wen Bien looked impatient. Die. Are you saying you want to commit suicide? Who are you trying to scare? If you really wanted to die, you would have died long ago. Besides, what's the big deal? You were just slept with by a few people and took a few photos, right? I slept with you too. Just think of those people as me. Okay, even celebrities have sex tape scandals. Just think of it as you enjoying the treatment of a celebrity. Yu Xinshin also sneered and said, Jian Rao, last time I indefinitely couldn't satisfy you alone. I wonder if you had a good time this time. Do you know what this is called? This is retribution. Your retribution. I stared at Wen Bian firmly. Last time, it was clearly you who tricked me into opening the door and forced yourself on me. Before I could finish speaking, he waved his hand to interrupt me. He said disdainfully, Jian Rao, who would believe that? Everyone knows that you've liked me since you were a child. If I wanted to sleep with you, would I need to trick you and use force? His contemptuous eyes stung me, and Yu Xinshin laughed even louder. My dignity was trampled under their feet and rubbed hard. In the end, I couldn't stand the whole network mockery and committed suicide by cutting my wrists in the bathtub. On the day I died, reports of Wen Bian and Yu Xinshin's engagement were overwhelming. Speaking of which, Wen Bian's parents' acceptance of Yu Xinshin was actually my credit. Wen Bian's parents had been trying hard to make me and Wen Bian. They looked down on Yu Xinshin very much, but I was exposed to a huge scandal. They felt ashamed of their son. So they gave in on the marriage matter and fulfilled this pair of lovers. They finally got married with everyone's blessings, while I carried a dirty name and returned to the underworld. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. The overwhelming hatred was about to drown me. At this time, Yu Xinshin's panicked voice came from the entrance of the police station. Police officer, what happened to my boyfriend? What's going on? 6. It turned out that in order to find out the cause and effect of the case, Yu Xinshin and the others who had left halfway were all found and summoned to the police station. When Bian was drugged, we called you here to get a preliminary understanding of the situation. After the police officer finished speaking, Yu Xinshin visibly panicked. Drugged? How is that possible? I walked to the door of the lounge, wanting to see her expression at this moment. The moment our eyes met, she immediately got an idea. It's her. It's Jian Rao. It must be Jian Rao. She's always been coveting my boyfriend, but my boyfriend has no feelings for her at all. She must have drugged my boyfriend with aphrodisiac, just to make my boyfriend lose control so that my boyfriend will be responsible for her. Yu Xinshin couldn't wait to push all the blame onto me and didn't notice the change in the police officer's expression. Yu Xinshin, right, the police officer said seemingly casually. How do you know that your boyfriend was drugged with aphrodisiac? We didn't tell you that. How do you know? Yu Xinshin realized that she had let something slip due to fear and visibly panicked. She was directly invited to the interrogation room and stammered to defend herself. Well, I guessed it. Jian Rao has always had ill intentions towards my boyfriend. She must have drugged him with aphrodisiac to blackmail my boyfriend into being responsible for her. Police officer, believe me, I really guessed it. My intuition has always been very accurate. It must be that shameless slut Jian Rao. You should arrest her quickly. She kept biting me, and the others who came out to play together were already terrified when they saw the situation getting serious. They spilled the beans and told everything they knew before the police could interrogate them. Police officer, it has nothing to do with us. We were just on a team building trip from a project group. Yu Xinshin said that she drugged Wen Bian to test whether he could be loyal to her. Yes, and when Bian and Jian Rao are childhood friends, Yu Xinshin has always been jealous. So she deliberately left Jian Rao in the villa. Yes. She also said that even if Wen Bian couldn't control himself, as long as she showed up in time to catch him in the act, Wen Bian would compensate her well out of guilt. She said that as long as we cooperated, she would thank us well. we didn't collude with her, we just didn't have the nerve to call the police. It turned out that, whether in the previous life or this life, they weren't unaware of the truth, they just bowed down to Yushinshin's sugar-coated bullets. Now that the matter had blown up and they could see that they were about to be implicated, they all ran away quickly. The group of people who had helped Yushinshin accuse and humiliate me in the previous life now all stood on the opposite side of Yushinshin. In order to exonerate themselves, they all, without prior consultation, desperately shifted the blame onto Yushinshin. After all, they could tell the difference between sugar-coated bullets and a crime, and they knew which was more serious. As soon as the police heard this, they immediately knew that Yushinshin was highly suspected. She was detained on the spot. And the remaining people were also kept behind because of the suspicion of being accomplices. Yushinshin kicked up a fuss. Where's Ian? Where's my boyfriend? He's the victim. He won't hold me accountable. You can't arrest me. She knew very well that at this moment, when Bian was her last hope. Unfortunately, when Bian was stabbed by me and was still in the hospital receiving treatment, although when Bian couldn't come, I invited 2 other people related to when Bian, 7. Who drugged my son? Who? A shrill female voice came, and when Bian's mother arrived, behind her were when Bian's father and their family lawyer. As soon as Yushinshin saw these 2 people, her legs immediately went weak. I understood what she was afraid of. She really wanted to marry Wen Bian, but if the Wen family knew that she had drugged Wen Bian, then marrying Wen Bian would just be a dream for her. Wen Bian's mother locked her eyes on Yushinshin, strode over, and gave her 2 hard slaps on both sides of her face. She's clearly not a good person. It's bad enough that she seduced my son, but she even dared to drug him. Police officer, you must investigate her thoroughly. Who knows what kind of low-life people she's associated with. She might even be trying to murder him for his money. Yushinshin's face immediately turned pale. Auntie, please listen to me. It wasn't me. It really wasn't me. It was Jian Rao. It was Jian Rao who did it. At this time, Yushinshin still didn't forget to frame me, but she was retorted by Wen Bian's mother. Rao Rao grew up under my watch, and she's the daughter-in-law I approve of. If she wanted to sleep with my son, I would even wash my son clean and send him to her bed overnight. Tell me, where would she need such despicable means? Yushinshin was taken away and detained, and the scene finally quieted down. Wen Bian's mother reached out and hugged me, looking full of chagrin. She apologized to me. Rao Rao, were you scared? I'll ask your uncle Wen to break Wen Bian's legs later to vent your anger. This brat, how dare he treat you like that? Uncle Wen also said to me, I'll definitely make Wen Bian apologize to you properly later. However, instead of waiting for the apology, I received Wen Bian's accusation. 8. After learning that Yushinshin was detained, despite the wound on his lower abdomen, Wen Bian quickly rolled off the hospital bed. He pointed at my nose and cursed. Jian Rao, what do you mean? Why did you send Shinshin to the police station? The person who almost hurt you was me, not Shinshin. Why are you causing trouble for her? Shinshin is a girl, and she's been locked up in there for a whole day and night. I don't know how scared she must be. No, I have to go and save her. As he spoke, he pulled out the infusion needle on the back of his hand and was about to run out. Uncle Wen couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him hard, knocking him down on the hospital bed. Seeing this, I held back my nausea and tried to persuade him. Uncle Wen, stop hitting him. It's all my fault. I meddled in things that weren't my business. But at that time, I saw that Wen Bian's condition was clearly not right. I was worried that something might go wrong with his body and that he would miss the best treatment opportunity. So I called the police for help. Mentioning this, Wen Bian's mother threw a stack of test reports in Wen Bian's face. You can't tell right from wrong. Take a good look. See how harmful that drug is to the body. If you had taken more of it, you would have already had kidney failure by now. Rao Rao saved you out of kindness. It's bad enough that you don't appreciate it, but you even dare to scold her. I think you really need a good beating. Apologize to Rao Rao, not just for today's matter, but also for that day. How could you have set your sights on Rao Rao? If the police hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. When Bian turned his face away and mumbled in a low voice, what consequences could there be? Jian Rao has always liked me. Even if I did something to her, wouldn't she be happy? Uncle Wen was so angry when he heard this that he raised his arm again. When Bian put on a pitiful expression, Dad, if you want to hit me, go ahead. But you must help me get Shinshin out, otherwise, I'll tell the police that I took the drug voluntarily and that none of this has anything to do with Shinshin. I don't believe that you would just stand by and watch me go to jail. Mom and Dad, it was Jian Rao who hurt me. Not only do you not speak up for me, but you're even taking her side. I'm your biological son, Xin is your future daughter-in-law, Jian Rao is just an outsider. But before Uncle Wen's slap could land, Wen Bian was brutally punched and kicked by a black figure that rushed out. His nose and mouth were bleeding, and he saw stars. He was staggering and couldn't even stand steadily. I took a closer look and saw that my dad had come. As soon as I saw my family member, my tears couldn't be held back any longer and flowed down like a burst dam. Dad! I cried and threw myself into his arms. Why did you come so late? I'm so scared, Dad. My dad held my shoulders and looked me up and down several times. After confirming that I wasn't injured, he hugged me tightly. While patting my back to soothe my emotions, he said sternly, Wen Bian, this is attempted rape, isn't it? You still can't say anything decent. I'm telling you. I'm going to send you to jail and make sure you serve a long sentence. The Wen family's parents knew they were in the wrong and didn't dare to speak up too much for Wen Bian. Uncle Wen shouted angrily, Wen Bian, apologize now. Wen Bian reluctantly said sorry. My dad was so angry that he laughed instead. Is that an apology? Seeing this, Uncle Wen kicked Wen Bian in the back of his knee. Wen Bian was caught off guard, and his knee hit the ground heavily, making him kneel right in front of me. His eyes turned red from the pain. He was full of resentment but didn't dare to say anything. My dad protected me behind him and said, just kneeling isn't enough. It can't be that easy. Let me say it again. I've already reported Wen Bian for attempted rape. Everything will be decided by the court. Wen Bian panicked instantly. Mom and Dad, I won't really be arrested and sent to jail, will I? I don't want to go. I don't want to go. 9. My dad took me away, since the Wen family's parents knew they were in the wrong. They didn't dare to stop us. They could only watch as my dad and I gave Wen Bian a good beating and then left with our heads held high. They had already felt sorry for Wen Bian being drugged, and seeing their son in such a bewitched state, they naturally hated Yu Xin to the core. No matter how much Wen Bian made a fuss, they refused to let Yu Xin go. However, with their efforts, Wen Bian wasn't detained and stayed outside to recuperate from his injuries. Wen Bian couldn't persuade his parents and secretly came to me. Jian Rao, I really don't understand. Why do you have to pursue this? What's there for you to pursue? I didn't do anything to you. Besides, you stabbed me. If anyone should pursue this, it should be me holding you accountable, right? Moreover, if I had agreed to sleep with you, shouldn't you be happy? What are you playing at now? I took a deep breath and once again confirmed the fact that Wen Bian was mentally ill. I took a moment to calm down and then kicked him hard in his still unhealed lower abdomen. Because I put all my strength into that kick, his wound was torn open by me, and the bright red blood quickly soaked through his clothes. I squatted down on the ground far away, holding my head, and shouted loudly, don't come near me, Wen Bian, don't come near me. I looked so terrified as if I had been greatly stimulated. My dad rushed over in a hurry, seeing this. He immediately had the people throw Wen Bian, who was screaming and clutching his stomach, out. When Wen Bian's parents arrived and saw Wen Bian's pitiful state, and then thought about the reasons behind my actions, they not only didn't blame me but also apologized to me in various ways. Rao, Ian wasn't in his right mind, please forgive him. My dad was furious and asked with his neck stuck out, forgive him? How else do you want us to forgive him? I didn't directly beat him to death, and my daughter didn't stab him to death. Isn't that forgiving him? When Bian's parents left in disgrace, I was also very annoyed. I should have stabbed him deeper at the beginning so that he wouldn't be able to come and pester me so soon. Looking at Wen Bian's miserable appearance, the Wen family's parents hated Yu Xin even more. Under the pressure from the Wen family's parents, the case was soon put on trial. Yu Xin was sentenced to 4 months in prison for buying and selling controlled drugs, drugging someone, although no serious consequences had occurred. In addition, since Wen Bian had issued a letter of forgiveness, she received this relatively light sentence. Although Wen Bian was the one who had committed violence, he was also the victim in this case, and his behavior and consciousness weren't his true intentions. He only needed to provide me with economic compensation. After thinking about it, I convinced my dad to accept the judgment result. Anyway, it wasn't possible for them to pay a heavier price for this matter. It was better to let them out earlier so that I could get my revenge on them sooner. After all, I really wanted to get rid of the two of them, and I really didn't want to wait too long. I had to think carefully about what exactly I should do. 10. During these 4 months, in order to make Wen Bian forget about Yu Xin, When Bian's parents introduced many girls to him, there were sexy girls, cute girls, fit girls, and intellectual girls. They came in all shapes and sizes. They hoped that one of them would catch Wen Bian's eye and pull their son back from the brink. Unfortunately, their wish wasn't fulfilled. I had already spread the news that Wen Bian had been drugged by his girlfriend and had almost made a big mistake. Yet he still doted on his girlfriend. Their past love stories were well known in the circle. As soon as people heard Wen Bian's name, they ran away quickly. Even if they had to meet Wen Bian out of courtesy, they would just do it perfunctorily to deal with their parents. However, it was inevitable that some girls would secretly bring up the relevant matter and ask him why he liked someone who had drugged him, at first, with the hope that others could understand him. Wen Bian would tell them about his past love stories with Yu Xinxin. When I first met her, I casually said that I was hungry. Instead of taking me to an upscale restaurant to spend money, she took me back to her home and cooked me a bowl of instant noodles herself. You know, she was the first girl who was willing to cook for me. Even my mom has never cooked noodles for me herself. That bowl of noodles made me feel the taste of home. He talked on and on. But the girls were all left speechless. The way they looked at Wen Bian became strange. Indeed, with such deep feelings, if people didn't know better, they would think that Yu Xinxin had saved Wen Bian's life. It was all because of a bowl of noodles. It was really hard to understand. It could only be said that like attracts like. Wen Bian would also tell them, Xinxin is in jail because I'm useless, I couldn't protect her. It's also because Jian Rao is being unrelenting and insisting on causing trouble. Clearly, she's fine, but she won't let us go. If it weren't for her calling the police, there wouldn't be so many problems. The girls' views on right and wrong were completely shattered. Gradually, the news that Wen Bian might be mentally ill spread, and everyone looked at him with curiosity. Compared with others, Wen Bian thought that other women were all mediocre and only Yu Xinxin could understand him. Only Yu Xinxin was his destined other half. He wholeheartedly waited for Yu Xinxin to be released from prison so that they could rekindle their relationship. Wen Bian's parents were so worried about this that their hair turned white. The short 4 months passed quickly, and Yu Xinxin was about to be released from prison. Wen Bian wanted to pick Yu Xinxin up from prison in person, but his parents stopped him and locked him at home. This was exactly the opportunity one needed. 11. Yu Xinxin, who was sitting opposite me, was full of hostility. Jian Rao, did you come here to laugh at me? I shook my head and put on a sincere expression. Of course not. You know that I've liked Wen Bian since I was a child. Only when he's happy can I be happy. Yu Xinxin asked me suspiciously what I meant. I said seriously, Wen Bian will only be happy when he's with you. So, I'm here to help you. I'll help you be with Wen Bian. She was half believing and half doubting but didn't interrupt me. I continued on my own, actually. Wen Bian's parents oppose your relationship not because they don't like you as a person, but because there's too big a gap between you and Wen Bian. You can't become better overnight, but if Wen Bian is willing to sacrifice himself a bit and become less outstanding, especially if his flaws are known to everyone, then his parents won't be able to pick on you anymore. Right, I stopped speaking there. And Yu Xinxin's eyes immediately lit up. Wen Bian's parents could stop him for a while, but they couldn't stop him forever. Soon, Wen Bian and Yu Xinxin still found an opportunity to meet. Yu Xinxin used the same old trick and took Wen Bian to a party, the very party where I was insulted in my previous life. She arranged for reporters to sneak into the party in advance and took many astonishing photos. A few days later, the news was reported. The explosive content quickly spread on the internet, in the mosaicked photos. Wen Bian's face was clearly visible. The news of the son of the boss of Wen's group participated in an orgy party quickly fermented, bringing a fatal blow to Wen's group, which specialized in wedding business. Wen Bian became infamous overnight and, under the reinforce of tabloids, became a well-known lecher. Wen Bian's parents were in a hurry and reported the case overnight, saying that their son had been tricked into such a place. The spearhead was directly pointed at Yu Xinxin. The police quickly raided this stronghold and found a large number of contraband items used for entertainment. Among them was the same drug that Yu Xinxin had given Wen Bian last time. According to the confessions of those people, Yu Xinxin had not only bought the drug that one time. Some drugs could make girls fall into a coma and have no memory afterwards, and some could make men lose control of their animal instincts. She not only sold drugs but also once helped others bring many drugged girls here and earned a certain amount of money from it. Yu Xinshin was arrested again in accordance with the law and was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison 2 months later. Despite the facts in front of him, Wen Bian still refused to believe. He always firmly believed that all of this was framed on Yu Xinshin by his parents and me. In his eyes, Yu Xinshin was a perfect and pure girl. He vowed to fight against us villains to the end. He said that he must wait for Yu Xinshin to be released from prison and that he still wanted to be with her. He said that their love was unbreakable. When Bian's parents even suspected that he had mental problems and tied him up to be treated in a mental hospital, but he secretly ran away, and no one knew where he had gone, in order to save the business of the family enterprise. Wen Bian's father announced the deprivation of Wen Bian's shares in the enterprise, and the enterprise was taken over and managed by his eldest daughter, Wen Bian's half-sister Wen Bieji. After taking over, Wen Bieji quickly took a series of measures to restore the corporate image, including but not limited to completely separating the family enterprise from the other 3 members of the Wen family now. Wen Bian's father originally disagreed. But after a series of irresponsible actions by Wen Bian, he also acquiesced. His mother was immersed in the pain of not knowing where her son was every day and couldn't care about anything else at all. Wen Bieji took the opportunity to quickly complete the transfer of equity and family property. From then on, Wen Bian was completely kicked out of the family enterprise. 12. Wen Bian, who had secretly run away, found a job to support himself. He worked while waiting for Yu Xinshin to be released from prison. He wanted his family to see that his choice was not wrong. He also wanted Yu Xinshin to see that for her sake, he was willing to break with his family and endure any hardship. To my surprise, Wen Bian actually endured for more than 3 years. At first, when he went to visit Yu Xinshin in prison, she was so touched that she cried with tears in her eyes. But after she was finally released from prison, when she saw Wen Bian's living conditions, she frowned without any concealment. You, a young master, live in such a place. Wen Bian thought Yu Xinshin felt sorry for him and said attentively, Xinshin, it's worth enduring any hardship for you. But Yu Xinshin raised her voice, I mean, you, a young master, let me live with you in such a place and live such a life. How can you have the nerve? Obviously a rich young master, but you have to endure hardship for no reason. Are you out of your mind? Yu Xinshin forced Wen Bian to go back to the Wen family to ask for money, but was turned away. I don't know how Wen Bieji persuaded them. Her father had already taken Wen Bian's mother to live overseas last year. Yu Xinshin said righteously, Wen Bian is also of Wen family blood, he should have a share of the family property, right? Unfortunately, the Wen family's property had already been transferred to Wen Bieji's name. She and Wen Bian didn't have the same mother and had not grown up together since childhood, so naturally they had no feelings. Moreover, she hated those who were muddle-headed and love struck the most. Wen Bian had caused such a commotion that almost destroyed Wen's group and the foundation of her good life. How could she give Wen Bian a good look? So, Wen Bian and Yu Xinshin were kicked out. Yu Xinshin was not discouraged and persistently urged Wen Bian to come back to ask for money every now and then. Gradually, she became disappointed and no longer had a good attitude towards Wen Bian. Waste, good for nothing, you can't even grab a share of the family property, 6,000 yuan a month, what can you do with that? You're really useless. These curses showed that Wen Bian's persistence over the past 3 years was like a huge joke. He came to the Wen family again, when Bieji was holding a wedding. She married a financial talent of equal status. The wedding was grand and romantic. He saw his parents but didn't dare to go up and say hello. He turned around and fled in embarrassment. After walking a long way, he looked back again. He returned to his small rental house, but there were blushing sounds coming from inside. He wasn't as angry as he imagined, but sat outside the door quietly waiting. After waiting for a long time, a man came out with his pants in his hands. Seeing Wen Bian at the door, the man was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he took out 1,000 yuan in cash from his briefcase and threw it in front of Wen Bian. The man said, Brother, I cuckolded you, but not for nothing. Take this money, consider it as me buying your wife once, but when I met her, you were just a kid who hadn't even grown up yet. Wen Bian looked at the cash in front of him and listened to the man's words. He didn't know what it felt like in his heart. He walked into the room. It was in a mess and smelled of the entanglement of men and women, which was disgusting. His eyes fell on the spots on the bedsheet, and he suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Wen Bian said softly, Xinshin, what have my efforts and waiting over the years been for? Hearing the movement, Yu Xinshin didn't look back and just sorted out her clothes on her own. Wen Bian, are you crazy? You waited for me, and you had to cut off relations with your family to wait for me. Did you really think you could make a name for yourself? Couldn't you just be a young master and wait for me to come out, self-pitying and crazy? If it weren't for the fact that you had some money before, how could I have taken a fancy to you? As she spoke, she walked outside. Since you found out, I won't pretend anymore. I see that the Wen family won't recognize you anymore, and I don't want to live such a poor life with you. Brother Wang has invited me. I'm going first. I probably won't come back either. Live this kind of life by yourself slowly. 13. When Bian finally understood at this moment that no matter which side he was on, he lived like a joke. His self-esteem had made him persist for 3 years, but it was trampled to pieces by Yu Xinshin. His anger surged, and he only felt infinite despair. He didn't have the face to go back to the Wen family anymore. He thought that life was quite meaningless, so he reached out and grabbed Yu Xinshin, who was walking outside, and dragged her back into the house. Then, he picked up a kitchen knife. His appearance of trying to restrain himself yet helplessly begging strongly tugged at my heartstrings. The guests were full, and it was grand, romantic, and very decent. He thought that his life should have been like this originally, right? He thought of me, later. He laughed self-deprecatingly. How could he still have a life? When Bian raised the kitchen knife again and aimed it at his carotid artery, later. Based on the tip-off from the masses, the police found 2 corpses in a residential house. The man killed the woman with random knife strikes and then committed suicide. According to the descriptions of the surrounding neighbors, the woman had multiple extramarital affairs. The police suspected it was a crime of passion. The police contacted Wen Bieji. Wen Bieji dealt with the aftermath perfunctorily and didn't let her father and her step-mother know. Anyway, he had been missing for so many years. Why add to their troubles? I looked at the person outside the car window who called himself Brother Wang and handed him a stack of money. Compliments and words of thanks came out of his mouth. Boss, if there's such a thing in the future, you can still come to me. Leaving aside other things, Brother Wang, am definitely good at seducing these women. I said nothing and started the car to leave. I knew that Wen Bian would feel like a huge joke because of Yu Xinshin's betrayal. I knew that he wouldn't go back to his parents for help and would only have the intention of death. In my previous life, I liked him for so long. I knew him better than he knew himself. It's just that he never knew. The deep love I had for him that he trampled on finally became the axe that fell from above his head and the sharp sword that pierced through his chest, ending his life and getting justice for me. Story 2. I went back to the day he confessed his feelings to me. The boy was wearing a white shirt, his eyes soft as he said, "I like you." A second later, I heard his true thoughts. Believe that? Disgusting. The cicadas were loud on the camphor trees, and the people around us were cheering, though it was more like they were watching a joke unfold. Someone nearby whistled and laughed. Zhou Xiao's tastes seem a bit mild lately. The boy in the white shirt ignored them. Standing in front of me with tender eyes, the sunlight filtered through his shoulders, making him look like a prince from a fairy tale. Zhou Jiashu leaned against the handle of my bicycle, bending down to look at me, his warm breath touching my face. He said, "Song Jiwei, I like you." I saw my reflection in his eyes, a frail girl hidden under an oversized school uniform, slightly anemic. That was me at 17. I was still stunned. My face undoubtedly flushed and my fingertips trembling. After all, this was Zhou Jiashu, the boy I had secretly adored for so long. Before I could blurt out "I like you too," I heard the pure-hearted boy's inner voice. Believe that? Disgusting. I paused for a moment, then looked up at Zhou Jiashu in front of me. He was smiling tenderly, showing no sign of the disgust hidden deep inside. He confidently waited for my response. Since everyone at Nanqing know. Wen Hai knew I was head over heels for him. I pursed my lips, took a step back, and said with a trembling voice, "Sorry, I don't like you." Zhou Jiashu's face turned ugly just as a prominent white-haired boy casually passed by, looking as if he hadn't noticed the drama unfolding. I knew him. He was the school bully and Zhou Jiashu's arch-rival. Pointing at the white-haired bully, I told Zhou Jiashu, "I prefer that type, you understand." I grabbed the handle of my bicycle and shook it. "So, Zhou Jiashu, step aside." Zhou Jiashu was probably baffled, not understanding how the girl who only had eyes for him a second ago was now telling him to get lost. He stiffly placed his hand on my bike's handle, a strong sense of unease in his expression, and pressed his lips together as he asked, "What's wrong?" Boys naturally have more strength than girls, and with him holding it, I couldn't move my bicycle at all. Sweat ran anxiously down my forehead, but then suddenly, someone took the handle from me with one hand, easily breaking free from Zhou grip. "Didn't you hear? She told you to get lost." The voice was cold and slightly hoarse. I looked up to see the school bully's profile, his superior features and short silver-white hair glistening in the light, looking incredibly cool. The next second, I heard the school bully's panicked inner voice, "Damn, she's looking at me." The school bully rescued me from Zhou confession, pushing my pink bicycle forward, as some younger students teased him. "Qingqi, when did you stop riding motorcycles?" He kicked one of them and cursed, "Get lost." I walked beside him, feeling nervous, and mustered the courage to speak. "School bully, Qingqi." I paused for a moment before realizing he was telling me his name. He looked down slightly and asked softly, "Do you like me?" I instinctively wanted to shake my head but then heard his sinister inner thought, "Those who use me as a shield end up encased in concrete." My head quickly turned, and I nodded emphatically several times. Qingqi has eyes that resemble peach blossoms, which now curve into a smile as he stops walking, frees his hand to touch my face, and gently taps the mole below my eye with his thumb. He speaks leisurely, "From now on, you'll do my homework. Come watch my basketball games. And walk me to school. Treat me like you did Zhou, but 10 times better." "Got it." I was a bit confused and asked, "What do you mean by that?" He condescendingly patted my face, "It means I'm letting you chase after me." Qingqi, with his dyed silver hair and earrings, looks like someone who's hard to please written all over his face. Suddenly, I feel like maybe I'm better off going back and continuing the battle with Zhou. I followed the familiar path back home. This area is filled with villas. I wasn't brought back from the countryside until I was 17. At that age, I didn't understand many things, like why my mother was the first wife, yet I had a half-sister, Songji, who was a few months older than me. Everyone liked Songji, including Zhou. Zhou and Songji were childhood sweethearts. Even his initial kindness towards me was to persuade me to donate a kidney to her, if it weren't for Songji's illness. The Song family would never have thought to bring me back. To them, I wasn't a person, but a remedy. But now, their intentions hadn't yet been revealed. Songji, who was recuperating at home, was watering the garden. Hearing me enter, she looked up and smiled gently. "You're back late. We've already had dinner." It didn't matter to me. I didn't have the privilege to dine at the table anyway. Zhou confessed his feelings to me today. Her watering can suddenly drop to the ground. Splashing water on her face, she forced a smile. "Really, I wish you well." Surprised, I raised an eyebrow. Of course, I didn't accept. How could he be worthy of me? In that moment, I was overwhelmed by numerous spiteful and hateful thoughts, all coming from the usually kind Songji, a mere kidney donor, not grateful to us. "How dare you speak like that?" Jiashu only told me he would get close to Songji Wei. He didn't say he'd confess his feelings for her. She must have seduced him. "Songji Wei, have you looked in the mirror? So ugly and flat." I smiled wryly, thinking they still expect to rely on me to survive. Wishful thinking. I ran upstairs, hearing Songji vigorously coughing behind me. As I climbed the stairs, a close family maid whispered to me, "The lady ordered not to save dinner for you." I nodded. It was usual. As I turned around, I paused, hearing the maid's heartfelt pity, so pitiful, before I returned. It was when Songji successfully recovered and was discharged from the hospital thanks to my kidney. Zhou promised me that it would be his engagement. Unexpectedly, he did get engaged, but not to me, to Songji. Enduring nausea and disgust, he had been deceiving me, this country girl he despised, and finally got his wish. On the day of his engagement, he held Songji by the waist in front of many guests, and as gently as when he confessed, he said to me, "Songji Wei, why don't you take a look in the mirror?" I looked down and saw my swollen figure, swollen from medication, reflected on the spotlessly clean floor, starkly different from the slender and radiant Songji. Maybe, it was always meant to be worlds apart. In that moment, my heart felt shattered. Fortunately, I woke up from the dream, back to the moment when Zhou first confessed his feelings to me, and I even unlocked a skill that allowed me to hear people's true thoughts. I took out my phone from under the pillow, and as soon as I opened the messaging app, I was greeted with over 99 unread messages. There was only one pinned at the top, from Zhou. At 17, I really liked him a lot. Zhou messages kept popping up. Clearly, he was quite upset. Zhou, Songji Wei, I'm giving you one more chance, my confession still stands, Zhou Jiaxu. Are you deliberately trying to anger me? Well, you've succeeded, Zhou Jiaxu, stay away from Qingqi. He's no good. There were several missed calls, and scrolling up, I saw all the messages I had sent him, usually met with silence on his end. On rare occasions, a reply from Zhou Jiaxu would make my day. Now, Zhou Jiaxu was still sending a continuous stream of messages. I quickly blocked him with a single click, then leisurely, I entered the grade group chat, and sure enough, they were discussing the incident from the afternoon. The school heartthrob and the tough guy fighting over a girl. A boring headline. They even posted photos from the scene. I clicked on one and instantly blushed. In the photo, a young man with silver-white hair was nearly embracing the girl, reaching over the bicycle handle she was holding, and provocatively staring down Zhou Jiaxu with a raised eyebrow. The comments continued to flood in. Who is this girl anyway? Even the star beauty from the neighboring school hasn't caught Qing brother's attention. He usually doesn't allow pictures of him. But today there's so many and he hasn't said a thing. It must be serious. I exited the chat just as I received a new friend notification. The username was CC, with the note Song Jiwei's admirer. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked accept. Jiwei, I've accepted your friend request. Now we can start chatting. After a brief pause, he sent a voice message. His voice was husky as he said, just friends. I intended to pause the voice message but in my fluster, I accidentally initiated a video call. He answered, and a handsome face appeared extremely close to the camera, almost as if his eyelashes could brush against my face. I instinctively held my phone a bit farther away. Then I heard him chuckle from the screen. Qingqi teasingly said, "Why is your face so red while talking to me?" I struggled to find words. Then, from his side of the screen, someone shouted, wanting to lean in, "Brother Qing, we want to see our sister-in-law. It's all over the forums." Qingqi didn't even look back, just chuckled and said, "Get lost." He then reached out, covering the camera like a child hoarding his toys. Pretty childish, really. After a while, Qingqi moved his hand away, his lips curving into a smile. "Couldn't stand being apart for a bit and had to video call me. Huh, miss me?" His tone was light, almost seductive. I was about to explain when suddenly, my stomach growled loudly. I was hungry. Before he could react, I quickly pressed the red hang-up button and buried my head in my hands. So embarrassing. End of translation. I couldn't step out, and there was no dinner left for me at home. I searched the entire room but found no snacks or bread. I had no choice but to resign myself to lying in bed and waiting it out. Outside the window stood a tall camphor tree. If it weren't for this tree blocking the view and sunlight, I wouldn't have been given this south-facing room. The leaves rustled, and I heard the sound of knuckles tapping on the glass. Looking up, I saw a silver-haired young man climbing the branches of the camphor tree, acting recklessly. He tapped on the window with one hand while holding a bulging bag in the other. I hurried to my feet and, in disbelief, opened the window as the night wind rushed in like wildfire. I had heard that Qingqi had gone into special forces training right after graduation. His physical condition was indeed top-notch. Qingqi handed me the bag, his elegant fingers well-defined as he curved his lips into a smirk. "Dear Miss Jiwei, it's Qing Brothers Delivery Service," he whispered. "Would you consider giving a 5-star rating? After all, who is chasing whom?" Qingqi. The next day, Qingqi gave me the answer. It was indeed me chasing him. I had to wait for him to finish school and run errands during breaks, even showing up to support him at his basketball games. I brought Qingqi 2 bottles of sports drink as a thank you for last night's delivery. I walked slowly to the gymnasium, only to find it crowded, especially with girls shouting the names Qingqi and Zhou Jiaxu. There was a basketball game between class 1 and 3, and they were in those respective classes. As I walked towards Qingqi, someone blocked my path. It was Zhou Jiaxu standing right in front of me, his comment from yesterday still stinging in my heart. His expression softened slightly as he reached for the drink in my hand. It had always been like this. I brought him water when he played basketball and took notes while he studied. Occasionally he would sweeten the deal. Zhou Jiaxu said, "Since you brought me water, I'll forgive you for yesterday." I dodged his hand and looked down. "Excuse me." He stood frozen. I quickly walked a few steps to Qingqi behind him and handed him the drinks. Qingqi squinted his eyes, seemingly in a good mood, and lazily said, "Oh, I can't open the bottle." Resigned, I took the bottle back, unscrewed the cap, and handed it to him. Qingqi took a sip, his Adam's apple bobbing, and chuckled towards the direction behind me. Suddenly, I heard his inner thoughts. Qingqi was thinking, "Ugh, I detest presumptuous people. I turned around. And Zhou Jiaxu was still standing there, looking a bit flustered, his lips pursed, and as I looked over, he averted his dark eyes. He was angry, and I was pleased. Qingqi was in top form, unstoppable on the basketball court, inciting waves of screams in the gym. In contrast, Zhou Jiaxu was unusually distracted and kept glancing over in our direction, almost getting trounced. It was no surprise that Qingqi's class won. After the game, Qingqi walked over to me. His face full of triumphant spirit. I handed him the water, and he leaned down, hooking his finger for me to come closer. I felt my face and neck enveloped by his warm breath. Qingqi drawled, after watching my game, got nothing to say. I blinked, and the girls next to me had been exclaiming for half an hour about how handsome Brother Qi was. I looked up at him hesitantly and echoed, "Brother Qi is handsome." The next second, my head was shrouded in darkness under a jacket. It was the school uniform jacket Brother Qi had set aside before entering the scene, still carrying a scent of soap. I heard someone shouting, "Brother Qi, why are your ears and face so red? Did those guys from class 1 play dirty and hurt you?" Brother Qi clenched his teeth and hissed, "Shut up." 8. Life became much easier without revolving around Zhou Jiaxu. My impression of Qingqi still lingered on that time when I came out of the convenience store and stumbled upon him fighting with some guys from the neighboring school. Terrified, I crouched down on the ground, fearing I might accidentally get hurt, and only dared to look up when everything went quiet. Only Qingqi was left standing, leaning against the wall with a smirk as he looked at me. I was scared. Qingqi asked, "Got a band-aid?" I did have one, hesitating. I still approached and handed one to him. Instead, he extended his hand, his pale back of the hand slightly scraped, signaling me to apply it for him. Qingqi lowered his gaze and asked, "From first middle school?" I nodded. "Which class? What's your name?" Fearful of the school bully seeking revenge later, I gave a vague response, "Just always been a fan of Zhou Jiaxu." That wasn't entirely untrue. At first middle school, maybe not many knew Song Jiwei. But Zhou Jiaxu's sycophant was likely well remembered. Just as I was tearing open the band-aid wrapper, Qingqi suddenly withdrew his hand, his expression turning cold. "Boring." I didn't know which word had set him off. As he walked away, his back looked somewhat frail and unsteady, yet, now that I was getting to know Qingqi, I found him unexpectedly obedient. Even when he got angry, he was quite easy to appease. On the other hand, Zhou Jiaxu always seemed unpredictable. When he was nice to me, it felt like he genuinely liked me, but when he was not, he was truly spiteful. Fortunately, I probably wouldn't have much to do with him anymore. Then, after school, Zhou Jiaxu showed up at the Song residence. I went downstairs to grab some study guides and saw Song Ji happily running out of the piano room, half complaining and half cooing. "Jiaxu, it's been so long since you last visited me." Zhou Jiaxu paused for a moment and asked, "How's your recovery?" Song Ji chattered nonstop, "My health has just been a burden on my parents, but I'm fine. You don't need to worry. I'll ask Auntie to cut some fruit for you. You love." Zhou Jiaxu cut her off, his lips pursed. "No need." He looked up at the stairs and caught my eye as I stood there. He said, "I'm here to see Song Jiwei." Song Ji froze, as if she hadn't heard him right, and repeated, "Brother Jiaxu, who are you looking for?" Ignoring her, Zhou Jiaxu slowly said, "Song Jiwei, come down and talk." Under his gaze, I slowly descended the stairs and then, right in front of him, picked up my Idiot's Guide to High School Math, sighed, and said, "It's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I'm discussing math problems with Qingqi over video. He'll be upset if he has to wait too long." Song Ji's face turned pale, Zhou Jiaxu's face darkened. 9. That night, Song Ji made a fuss all night long, insisting on returning to school. She was much loved and recently in good health, so the family agreed. After her school re-entry process was completed, Song Ji's mother, for the first time, condescendingly spoke so much to me. It was half instruction and half threat, essentially summarizing that I should act as Song Ji's study companion and servant at school. Song Ji's mother said, "Song Jiwei, don't forget, being able to study here is all thanks to the resources I've provided for you. She has always looked down on me, the country girl, and never took me seriously. My father made his fortune thanks to Song Ji's mother, a second-generation wealthy businesswoman, so naturally, her status is higher." I meekly agreed. It wasn't until the end of the conversation that my father finally spoke up, calling my name, "Song Jiwei." I turned around. He said, "Don't call Gigi sister at school, it's hard to explain. Same father, but the two sisters are only a few months apart." Who could explain that, as soon as Songji returned to school, she caused a stir? She had taken a medical leave for half a semester, and during her time at school, thanks to her knack for management, she was considered a prominent figure. She and Zhou Jiaxu were in the same class and recently seemed inseparable. Soon, the rumors about me and Zhou Jiaxu self-destructed, with her parents backing her. Songji would boss me around as she pleased, being under someone's roof. I indeed had no choice but to bow my head. In the sweltering 40-degree midsummer noon, I ran errands for her and her friends, buying ice pops, returning drenched in sweat. I found them laughing together. That Songji Wei, you can tell she's a poor country bumpkin the moment you see her. She clung to Zhou Jiaxu and then moved on to Qingqi. Songji Wei's grades are terrible, she's nowhere near as good as Jiji. Zhou Jiaxu and Jiji are childhood sweethearts. Jiji. What's your relationship with Songji Wei anyway? I've never seen such an obedient dog. They burst into laughter as if they had heard the joke of the century. Suddenly, someone said, "Hey, Jiji, Songji Wei has the same last name as you." Songji's smile froze for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. Songji Wei is the daughter of our family's housekeeper. My dad pulled some strings to get her into our school. I interrupted their praises of Songji's kind family. Placing the foam box of ice pops on the table, Songji reached out and fiddled with the contents. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, I heard, "Ji Wei, they're all melted. Could you run out again?" I lowered my eyes, pondering how to retort. Suddenly, a cool voice spoke up, not as gentle as usual. Zhou Jiaxu said indifferently, "Songji, that's too much." Silence fell around us. Songji looked up, a bit wronged. "Jiaxu, you know she is." She swallowed her next words. Seemingly unable to speak them out loud while looking at Zhou Jiaxu, I heard Songji's inner turmoil, half anger and half grievance. She thought, why has his attitude changed when we share similar experiences? I glanced at Zhou Jiaxu, puzzled by his sudden defense of me. Perhaps they had changed their tactics, one playing good cop, the other bad cop. I slowly said, "What's too much about it? Haven't you done the same?" When I first pursued Zhou Jiaxu, he was quite annoying. He sent me out to buy coffee in a storm, and when I returned soaked, the coffee not even spilled, he merely glanced and said, "Songji Wei, the coffee's cold." Zhou Jiaxu clearly remembered this too. The air grew colder, and no one dared to speak. In the ensuing silence, someone lazily hooked their arm around my neck from behind, pulling me gently backward into their embrace, crashing into a refreshing coolness of summer. I looked up to see Qingqi's eyes, amused yet mocking. "I was wondering where you've been these past days, running errands for others." Qingqi scanned the crowd, his gaze passing over those present. His name had been abuzz on the campus forums, notorious as the school tyrant. "Let her run the errands," Qingqi articulated clearly, pausing after each word. "Are you even worthy?" Qingqi watched with a smirk as the group obediently went off to run laps, not daring to utter a word in protest. Even Songji wasn't exempt. A group of them drank melted ice pops and ran laps around the field under the scorching sun, drawing the gaze of classmates from the balconies. The head of discipline hurried toward the field, his half-bald head gleaming in the sunlight. The instigator, Qingqi, stood beside me, his silver hair boldly prominent, squinting down at the people below, his hostility unabated. "Qingqi," I called out his name. He turned, and the fierceness in his eyes melted away instantly. "Don't do this next time," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper. "It's not a good look." It wasn't that I felt pity for Songji and the others, rather, it was that Qingqi doing all this for me felt unwarranted. Since my mother passed away, I had been mostly self-sufficient. No one had ever treated me this well, although I'd heard Qingqi had been involved in even shadier dealings before. Such blatant disregard for rules definitely cast him in a negative light. Qingqi rested his chin on his hand, leaning close enough for me to count his eyelashes, and I saw my reflection in his eyes. "Feel better?" he asked. I paused for a moment. "Yes." Qingqi's lips curved into a smirk, his knuckle lightly tapping my forehead. Then, "The impact is quite positive." With Qingqi stepping in, Songji no longer dared to boss me around, scared off by just the mention of his name, so much so that she didn't even complain to her family. Perhaps my words had struck a chord with Zhou Jiaxu, as he too stopped bothering me. Occasionally, I saw Zhou Jiaxu and Songji together at school. Songji would look at Zhou tenderly 1 second and then switch to glaring at me with disgust the next, a real talent for dramatics, but Zhou didn't seem as close to her as I had imagined. However, none of that mattered to me anymore. My only task was to study hard. Lately, there might be another task, tutoring the underachieving student, Qingqi, on the day the monthly test scores were posted. The bulletin board was surrounded by a crowd. My grades weren't great before, but during the days I lay in the hospital before coming back, I had studied high school textbooks, hoping to retake the college entrance exam one day. So, I was also looking forward to seeing my ranking. Song Ji and her group were at the forefront of the board. Ji, you're ranked 29th in the grade. That's impressive. Of course, she was impressive. Her family hired top tutors for her daily. The top of the grade, as expected, is Zhou Jiashu. They turned around to see me starting from the bottom of the grade, inevitably sneering a bit. I heard Song Ji whisper, "Some people know their place, aware of where they stand." Suddenly, someone tugged at her sleeve, voice trembling. Ji, her ranking, it seems to be ahead of yours, just a few spots above her. Song Ji stared at the bulletin board, her face turning pale. Someone read out my position. Song Ji Wei, 20th, surprisingly high. Containing my joy, I finally spotted Qingqi's name. He had jumped to the middle ranks. The Jiwei tutoring class was evidently effective. I turned around, and Qingqi was walking with a group of boys from the end of the corridor, heading to play basketball. I waved, worried he wouldn't see me. I tiptoed and called out his name excitedly, Qingqi. He lifted his eyelids and looked towards me. 300th place. My eyes curved up, filled with joy and pride. You ranked 300th, Qingqi. Qingqi paused in his steps, while the people nearby teasingly nudged his elbow. Bro Qing, your girl is quite cute. Under everyone's gaze, the face of the school tyrant suddenly flushed red. I could sense Qingqi was somewhat irritated. He thought to himself, it's over, how can she be so good at this? People who liked Qingqi were many, but due to his reputation as the school tyrant, most harbored secret crushes. However, the one who approached me today was one of the few who openly showed their interest, the school beauty from the neighboring high school, Jiang Xian, who had acted in a few somewhat famous youth dramas. I heard Qingqi fought for her before, though I don't know why they never became a couple. She had been waiting for me at the school gate since early morning. Qingqi and I now go to school together. He had gone to the convenience store to buy breakfast for me, and I was waiting for him at the gate, only to be approached by Jiang Xian first. Jiang Xian was very beautiful. If Song Ji is the sole pure white jasmine, then Jiang Xian is the intense rose. Are you Song Ji Wei? I nodded. Jiang Xian got straight to the point. You can't win against me. Stay away from Ah Chi. Ah Chi appears cold but has a kind heart. Sometimes his sympathy can be overwhelming, giving others the wrong impression. Moreover, after what was said about you on the forum last night, I would be too ashamed to even come to school if I were you. Ah Chi's interest in you is just a fleeting fascination. Persisting any further will only bring you embarrassment. Forum? What forum? She finished speaking, but suddenly her eyes lit up and looked past me, affectionately calling out, Ah Chi. Before I could react, a cup of soy milk and a bun were thrust into my hands, and the silver-haired young man with a bag of pure milk bent down, slipping a packet of sugar into my pocket, and even zipped up my partially open backpack. Qingqi didn't look at Jiang Xian and mumbled unclearly, what were you saying? I blurted out quickly, she said you're a 3-minute man, Qingqi. My words were ambiguous, and my face turned red. Qingqi, who hadn't secured the milk bag properly, turned his head with a murderous look towards Jiang Xian. Qingqi's actions were as smooth and practiced as if he had done them countless times before. Jiang Xian watched Qingqi zip up my backpack, her face turning pale. Ah Chi, you never let others get too close. How can you do these things for her? Qingqi slightly lifted his eyelids and spat out 2 words, who are you? Being a celebrity usually requires a strong mental constitution, but with just 2 words, Qingqi broke Jiang Xian's composure. As Qingqi and I walked into the school, he suddenly spoke, I don't know her, I never fought for her, it's all just rumors. I was momentarily stunned, then realized that Qingqi was explaining to me. I looked up at Qingqi, his light-colored hair making his complexion appear even more pale. He lazily said, I'm not like some people who liked someone else before they liked me. Fortunately, she realized her mistake in time. His tone was ambiguous, not clear whom he was referring to. He lightly raised his eyebrows, cueing me, right, Song Ji Wei. After the morning's drama, I had a lingering sense of unease. True enough, as soon as I entered the school, something felt off. It was especially apparent during the break. The looks I received in the hallway were peculiar, and I heard whispers from all around. Song Ji Wei is actually an illegitimate daughter, no wonder she's playing both sides. it must be in her nature from birth. If I were her, I wouldn't dare to face Song Ji, let alone go to school with him. Oh my, that's disgusting. I realized something, and while in the restroom stall, I turned on my phone and checked the forum. Sure enough, there was a trending post about Song Ji Wei, the secret child from Yizhong, playing both sides. The post was anonymous, claimed by a fellow student who couldn't stand Song Ji Wei, and it dramatically and falsely narrated my background, completely distorting the truth. It said that Song Ji's parents were the loving and rightful couple. My mother schemed to seduce Song's father for his wealth, and has been using me to blackmail the Song family ever since. Now she had sent me to Yizhong to latch onto wealthy heirs. The post described Song Ji as pitiful, even blaming my mother for his poor health. And how shamelessly I clung to Zhou Jiashu and Qingqi. I didn't need to read further. The comments were all full of scorn. I was so angry I felt dizzy. The truth was not like that at all. It was actually Song Ji's mother who had set her sights on my newlywed father, becoming the other woman, and eventually, they ran off together, leaving my father to never look back at us, until her death. My mother still hoped he would come back to her. I left the restroom and washed my face at the sink. Zhou Jiashu passed me a piece of paper. He whispered, "I've already had someone handle this situation on the forum, don't worry." I looked at him through the mirror, his eyes gentle beneath his white shirt. "Did you already know about this?" I asked, referring to the content of the post. Zhou Jiashu closed his eyes in distaste and nodded. "I'll take care of this. No one will talk about your background, and don't be mad at me anymore. After this blows over, let's pretend it never happened." He had assumed it to be true without even asking me. He reopened his eyes and looked at me tenderly. "You see, from the moment we first met, I've been helping you. Come back, Ji Wei." I dried my face, tossed the tissue in the trash, and turned to face Zhou Jiashu, calmly stating, "Zhou Jiashu, I am not an illegitimate daughter." From the first time we met, Zhou Jiashu had always been helping me. When I first arrived here, I hadn't even located the Song family home yet and got lost in the villa area, chased around by a large dog from someone's house. My mother had died of rabies, and I had always been terrified of dogs. It was pouring rain that day, and as I ran, my meager belongings fell all over the place. The dog knocked me down, and I was so scared I started crying. But then I heard a whistle, and the dog immediately got off me and ran away happily. Trembling and wiping my tears in the rain, I gathered my pitiful possessions. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared over my head, held by a hand with distinct knuckles, belonging to a cold, young man in a white shirt. For a moment, I felt utterly ashamed. "Did you drive the dog away? Did you save me? What's your name?" he said. "My name is Zhou Jiashu, living under the Song family's roof, ignored at school." Only Zhou Jiashu constantly helped me. I always stayed by his side. Maybe I couldn't even clearly define my feelings, whether it was actually liking him. After all, from the beginning, he had his own motives. Zhou Jiashu was a complex person. Sometimes I thought he liked me, even wanting to write his name on my textbooks, but the next second, he could just stiffen his face and cross out the names he had just written down in the textbook. I always knew he despised something about me, but I never knew what it was. Now, I understand. He always thought I was an illegitimate child, that the blood flowing through my veins was tainted. Liking Zhou Jiashu is worse than liking a dog. I made my way unobstructed to the entrance of Class 1, and sure enough, I saw a crowd surrounding Song Ji. She was crying sadly, and the people around her were busy comforting her. Seeing me at the classroom doorway, they all glared at me angrily. Fortunately, after the previous incident with Qingqi, no one dared to mock me openly, fearing they might offend the school tyrant. Song Ji had always been superficially gentle with me, since she needed something from me, but lately, something had triggered her. First, she insisted on going to school, then there was the ice pop incident, and our conflict had essentially become public. Her eyes, red and swollen, clenched her fists until they turned white. "Song Ji Wei, can't you just leave our family alone?" I heard her inner thoughts again. "Zhou Jiashu just went to see her. He used to despise illegitimate children just like I did. How could he change like this?" Leaning against the wall, I chuckled. "Of course not." Song Ji's expression froze. I walked forward, resting my hands on her desk, looking down at her. "This post is misleading. I'm not the illegitimate child, the child of the mistress. Someone else is." Song Ji had been well shielded by her parents, unaware of their affairs, truly believing her mother was the rightful partner, which led to this misunderstanding and her secret hostility towards me. My sudden declaration caught her off guard, prompting an instinctive rebuttal. What proof do you have? I shook my head, stood up straight, a hint of disdain in my posture. No proof is needed, the accuser bears the burden of proof, the innocent do not need to prove their innocence, I said. I will call the police, justice will give me the answer. Did the person who spread the rumor really think they could remain anonymous without responsibility? Her face turned pale. Before I even called the police, justice arrived first. Someone mentioned, the forum's anonymous feature suddenly went offline. People near me, hiding their phones behind books, were also viewing the post. The poster's name, Song Ji, was clearly visible. Everyone's gaze at Song Ji turned strange after comforting her for so long. Only to find out she was the one who posted it. Truly, she was one way on the surface and another behind the back. Ultimately, Song Ji, being thin-skinned and overwhelmed, fainted. In the VIP hospital room, Song Ji had just come out from dialysis, looking pale. The caregiver was bustling around, and Song Ji's mother was feeding her sliced fruit. I was being scolded by Song Ji's father. Song Ji Wei, I am truly disappointed in you. Is this how you repay us? By upsetting my daughter to the point of hospitalization, he completely ignored what Song Ji had done. I dangled my eyes tiredly, staring at the clean floor, recalling the time I was alone in the hospital after donating a kidney to Song Ji. The family's attitude towards me changed drastically right after the surgery. When I first came here, it was to show my long-lost biological father that I, too, was a worthy daughter. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Luckily, I no longer cared. I understand the situation. I heard you're thinking of calling the police. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't go back to school, as those are Song Ji's classmates, and it wouldn't be good for her. I'll arrange a transfer for you, Mr. Song said, softening his voice as he realized his tone had been a bit too forceful. We're all family here. Let's try to understand each other. Okay, no, I replied softly. Mr. Song was stunned. This was the first time I had ever refused him. What did you say? He demanded sharply. My throat felt dry. The atmosphere in the hospital room grew tense. Suddenly, the door swung open without warning, and a group of people entered, surrounding a young man with silver hair. He spread his hands and said, Song Ji Wei, come here. I quickly walked towards him and asked in a low voice, how did you get here? Ching Chi placed his hand on my back and chuckled. I'm here to support you, Mr. Song clearly recognized Ching Chi, his expression turning somewhat ingratiating. I had no doubt that he was about to ask me to connect him with Ching Chi. I sighed, feeling unexpectedly emboldened, and repeated firmly, I said no, I will report to the police, and I am not donating my kidney. Whether Song Ji is alive or dead is none of my concern. Stop bothering me. I turned to look at Song Ji, who was gripped by panic, clutching the blanket tightly. Song Ji's dislike for me stemmed from our different mothers, from Zhou Jiaxu, and from her jealousy of my health. I shattered her long-held illusions. Song Ji, your mother was truly deceptive, and your father was definitely unfaithful during his marriage. Song Ji, you are the illegitimate daughter you rant about in your posts. After I had spoken my piece, I left the hospital room, leaving chaos behind. Sitting in the hospital corridor, someone suddenly crouched in front of me. Ching Chi and his companions had lingered at the door of the hospital room a bit longer, undoubtedly handling the aftermath for me. If it weren't for him, today wouldn't have been so easy for me. I pinched the palm of my hand, looking into Ching Chi's eyes. Thank you. The sunlight filtered through his features, exceptionally clear. I hesitated, then asked, why are you so good to me? Ching Chi propped his chin and smiled slightly. Are you speaking or cooing? My face flushed instantly. It wasn't coquetry, nor was it flattery. I was genuinely asking you, Ching Chi. Ching Chi furrowed his brows as if he was really contemplating. He said, does there need to be a reason? Some people just shine brightly, and when you see them, you want to give them the best. The first time I saw you, you were being chased around by the Zhou family's dog. It was quite a scene, and I was the one who whistled the dog away. I wanted to come over to see you, but then I saw Zhou Jiaxu. Seeing him annoys me, so I left. If I had known it was you, I definitely wouldn't have turned away. Had I known it was Song Ji Wei, I would never have let anyone get there first. With that turn, Zhou Jiaxu was all that filled Song Ji Wei's eyes, and she couldn't see anyone else. Watching her run around for Zhou Jiaxu, seeing her suffer yet still like him, watching them happy together, all I could do was walk away in disappointment. My eyelashes fluttered, surprised that he had helped me even before Zhou Jiaxu had. I waited for him to continue, but he stopped, his peach blossom eyes making me feel warm. And then, I prompted, you're in such a hurry to probe my feelings. Song Ji Wei, he said with a smirk. Ching-Chi stood up casually and commented indifferently. The Zhou family's dog has always been well behaved. Never running around and always listening to its owner. Ching-Chi and I went to the police station together to file a case, and the forum post remained online. It was said that Songji had been trying to delete the post, but to no avail. Just like the day when the forum suddenly glitched and disabled the anonymity feature, the comments beneath had already turned against her. Ching-Chi and I looked through the content of the post together. And he was particularly displeased with the part about me playing two sides, scoffing, "What kind of wreck is Zhou Jiaxu to be worth your stepping on?" The case was resolved quickly, not only requiring Songji to make a public apology, but I also received a financial compensation. It was neither too much nor too little, just enough to free myself from the control of the Song family, covering my tuition and living expenses. Songji admitted that she was spreading rumors, which in a way was also an indirect admission that her own origins were questionable, and that she was the illegitimate daughter. After this incident, my illness worsened. When it rains it pours, and the Song family's business also began to decline suddenly, but it had nothing to do with me. I collected the compensation from the Song family, sipped on a yogurt drink, and typed on my phone, "Jiwei, I knew it. Justice would give me an answer." "Ching-Chi, what about me?" After some thought, I typed out a response, "Jiwei, brother Ching will lead me to justice." There was no reply for a long time. I put down my phone to do my homework, and when I remembered to check it again, a new message had been there for a while. Ching-Chi had sent a voice message, the voice of a young man, hoarse and slowly flowing through the earpiece. "Song Jiwei, what should I do? I feel like you're about to catch up to me." Under the camphor tree, a young man in a white shirt stood for a long time. The fragmented light fell softly on Zhou Jiaxu. As I walked under the tree, he called out my name. I turned around, puzzled. Zhou Jiaxu's expression was complex. It was hard to tell if he felt relieved or something else. "I'm sorry," he pursed his lips. I never thought Zhou Jiaxu would say these words. He didn't seem as unapproachable as Ching-Chi, but he was prouder than anyone and would never easily lower his head. Patiently, I asked, "Is this about the misunderstanding that I'm an illegitimate child?" Zhou Jiaxu looked at me intently for a few seconds before responding in a low and strained voice. "For everything that happened before, Songji has been telling me for years that she had a half-sister from the same father, and I just took her word for it." Seeing my expressionless face, Zhou Jiaxu's eyes drooped, revealing a fragile, glass-like vulnerability. "Have you ever met my brother?" I had met him before. A cute little chubby boy who liked to run after Zhou Jiaxu, but Zhou Jiaxu's attitude towards him was indifferent, even harsh. Zhou Jiaxu paused, then exposed his own wounds. "He is the child of a woman my father kept on the side." I belatedly realized that Zhou Jiaxu's conflicting attitude towards me was merely projecting his own pain onto me. He even helped deceive me along with the Song family because, in his eyes, I owed them. "Zhou Jiaxu," I suddenly called his name. My eyes curving into a smile, he looked up, holding his breath, as it had been a long time since he had seen me smile at him. I heard the bitterness in Zhou Jiaxu's heart, but I really do like Song Jiwei a lot. "I like you." As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Zhou Jiaxu's eyes light up, and I scoffed, "Believe that? Disgusting." Zhou Jiaxu must understand, some things can't be fixed with an apology. I returned those words to him. Zhou Jiaxu was unsteady on his feet, watching me quietly and painfully. Perhaps at that moment, he realized what he had truly lost. "Song Jiwei," a lazy voice sounded from behind me, tinged with dissatisfaction. I quickly turned around to see Ching-Chi standing not far behind us, holding a strawberry-flavored ice cream. His peach blossom eyes squinted, giving me the feeling of being caught in an affair by the rightful partner. I didn't bother with Zhou Jiaxu anymore and ran towards Ching-Chi. However, I slipped halfway and crashed right into Ching-Chi's arms. Ching-Chi steadied me but hissed in pain. I hurriedly apologized. "I'm so sorry. Where does it hurt?" Ching-Chi took my hand and pressed it against the area over his left heart. Beneath my palm was his hot, rapidly beating heart. I looked up to see Ching-Chi's face showing no sign of pain. Instead, his eyes were lowered as he looked at me, his gaze tender and affectionate. "It hurts here." I realized I had been played, as I turned to leave. Ching-Chi gently pulled me back inside. "Dear Miss Jiwei, I understand that there are other guys around you, but as someone pursuing you, I feel a bit insecure. So, I've decided to drop 2 words from pursuit object. Can you guess which ones?" "Pursuit." Ching-Chi tightened his grip slightly and gritted his teeth. "No, the object." I couldn't hear the whispers of the heart anymore. just the pounding sounds of our two hearts. No one spoke.